Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rainam Namaskar Ram Chaiva Ratam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Astapreshu Bhajeshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhakti Naistiki. Chapter 33, Canto 3, Chapter 33, looking back, 6. Activities of Kapila. Sections are very powerful. Text 1, Maitreya Vacha. Sri Maitreya said, thus Devaprastha, the mother of Lord Kapila and wife of Karna Muni, became free from all ignorance concerning devotional service and transcendental knowledge. She offered her obeisances unto the Lord, the author of the basic principles of the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is the background of liberation, and she satisfied him with the following verses of prayer.
Devahuti said, Brahma is said to be unborn because he takes birth from the lotus flower which grows from Ura adamant, while you lie in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. But even Brahma simply meditated upon you, whose body is the source of unlimited universes.
My dear Lord, although personally you have nothing to do, you have distributed your energies in the interactions of the material modes of nature. For that reason, the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation take place. My dear Lord, you are self-determined. You are the Supreme Personality, guarded for all living entities. For them, you created this material manifestation, and although you are one, your diverse energies can act multifariously. This is unconceivable to us.
As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have taken birth from my abdomen. O my Lord, how is it that possible for the Supreme One, who has in his belly all the cosmic manifestation? The answer is that it is possible. For at the end of the millennium, you lie down on a leaf of a banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus foot.
My dear Lord, you have assumed this body in order to diminish the sinful activities of the fallen and to enrich their knowledge and devotion and liberation. Since these sinful people are dependent on your direction, by your own will, you assume incarnations as a boar and as other forms. Similarly, you have appeared in order to distribute transcendental knowledge to your dependents.
Say nothing of the spiritual advancements of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately comes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastime, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him.
Oh, how glorious you are! Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name, even if born in the families of dog eaters. Such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices, and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required.
Believe, my Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila, and you are the Supreme Personality of God, the Supreme One. The saints and sages, being freed from all the disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you. For by your mercy only can one become free from the clutches of the three modes of material nature. At the time of dissolution, all the Vedas are sustained in you only.
Six.
Namadeya Shamanukitana Namadeya Shamanukitana Pravana Yatsmana Lapikachits Pravana Yatsmana Lapikachits Swarapi Sadya Savanaya Kapate Swarapi Sadya Savanaya Kapate Uta Prunaste Bhagavan Nidarshana Uta Prunaste Bhagavan Nidarshana Namadeya Shavanana Kirtana Yadravana Yatsmana Rapi Swarapi Sadya Savanaya Kapate Utapunaste Bhagavarshana We work for it together. Yes. Of whom? The Supreme Personality of God. Namadeya, the name. Shravana, hearing. Anukirtana, by chanting. Yat, to whom? Bhavana, by offering obeisances. Yat, to whom? Smarana, by remembering. Happy, Rache, at any time. Swad, Happy, even. Saja, immediately. Samanaya, performing sacrifice. Comes out. Pika, what to speak of? Say, Bhagavan, O Supreme Personality of God, who, Darshan, has seen face to face. Translation of purport by his divine basis of to say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Herein the spiritual potency of chanting, hearing, or remembering the holy name of the Supreme Lord is greatly stressed. Rupa Goswami has discussed the sequence of simple activities of the conditioned soul, and he has established in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that those who engage in devotional service become freed from the reactions of all sinful activities. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says that he takes charge of one who surrenders unto him, and he makes him immune to all reactions to sinful activities. If by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes so swiftly cleared of all reactions to sinful activities, then what is to be said of those persons who see him face to face? Another consideration here is that persons who are purified by the process of chanting and hearing become immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. Generally, only a person who is born in a family of Brahmanas who has been reformed by the 10 kinds of purificatory processes and who is learned in Vedic literature is allowed to perform the Vedic sacrifices. But here the word sadhya immediately is used. And Sri Swami also remarks that one can immediately become eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. A person born in a family of the low caste, which is accustomed to eat dogs, is so positioned due to his past sinful activities. But by chanting or hearing once in pureness or in an offenseless manner, he is immediately relieved of the sinful reaction. Not only is he relieved of sinful reaction, but he immediately achieves the result of all purificatory processes. Taking birth in a family of Brahmana, is certainly due to pious activities in one's past life. But still, a child who is born in the family of a Brahmana depends for his further reformation upon initiation into acceptance of a sacred thread and many other reformatory processes. But a person who chants the holy name of the Lord, even if born in a family of Chandalas, dog eaters, does not need reformation. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, he immediately becomes purified and becomes as good as the most learned Brahmana. Sridhar Swami especially remarks in this connection, Anena Pujyat Tvam Lakshyate. Some caste Brahmanas remark that by chanting Hare Krishna, purification begins. Of course, that depends on the individual process of chanting. But this remark of Sridhar Swami's is completely applicable if one chants the holy name of the Lord without offense, for he immediately becomes more than a Brahmana. As Sridhar Swami says, Pujyatvam, he immediately becomes as respectable as a most learned Brahmana and can be allowed to perform Vedic sacrifices. If simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes sanctified instantly, then what can be said of those persons who see the Supreme Lord face to face and who understand the descent of the Lord as Devati understands completely? Usually, initiation depends on the bona fide spiritual master who directs the disciple. If he sees that a disciple has become competent and purified by the process of chanting, he offers a sacred thread to the disciple just so that he will be recognized as 100% equal with the Brahmana. This is also confirmed in the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sri Sanatana Goswami. As a base metal, like bell metal, can be changed to gold by a chemical process, any person can similarly be changed into a Brahmana by Diksha Vidana, the initiation process. It is sometimes remarked that by the chanting process, one begins to purify himself and can take birth in his next life in a Brahmana family and then be reformed. But at this present moment, even those who are born in the best Brahmana families are not reformed, nor is there any certainty that they are actually born of Brahmana fathers. Formerly, the Garbhadana, the formatory system, was prevalent. But at the present moment, there is no such Garbhadana or seed-giving ceremony. Under these circumstances, no one knows if a man is factually born of a Brahmana father. Whether one has acquired the qualification of a Brahmana depends on the judgment of the bona fide spiritual master. He bestows upon the disciple the position of a Brahmana by his own judgment. When one is accepted as a Brahmana in the sacred third ceremony under the Pancharatrika system, then he is Dvija, twice born. That is confirmed by Sanatana Goswami. Dvijatam Jayate. By the process of initiation by the spiritual master, a person is accepted as a Brahmana in his purified state of chanting the holy name of the Lord. He then makes further progress to become a qualified Vaishnava, which means that the Brahminical qualification is already acquired. So this is stressing the importance of something that we do every day, and sometimes we don't realize the potency of what we're doing. I don't always realize that this holy name is not simply like pouring water. If we're thirsty, I can be thirsty all day and say water, water, water. It's not going to quench my thirst. I have to actually put some water and drink it. Because the substance water and the name water are different. The name refers to the substance, but they're different things. But with Krishna's holy name, he's non-different from his name. The two are the one and the same. So if you have one, you have the other, which is, from a material perspective, very hard to comprehend. I think I may have mentioned when I first came in contact with these teachings, I thought chanting was too simple. The spiritual life must be sophisticated and complicated, and for it to be powerful, there has to be a lot of substance to it. Simply chanting these 3 words just, it seems like too simple. How can such a simple thing provide profound results? But I thought, well, what do I have to lose? I can chant. Others were encouraging me to chant. I thought if it doesn't work, then I can stop chanting. No harm. There's no loss, except a little bit of time and effort. But immediately upon chanting, things started to happen. The heart stirred, and I felt sensations, experienced things. I thought, okay, this may be very simple, but something's going on here that I've never experienced before. So let me do this some more. The more you do it, the more that its taste increases. And I thought, okay, I need to find out more about this philosophy, because this is not, it may appear very simple, but it's very profound. It talked a lot in this purport about the qualification of brahmanas, and there's always been debates throughout time about brahmana versus Vaishnava, which one's better, equal, which one's higher. And there was an assembly at one point in previous times. Today, if we want a fire, if you go camping and you need to light your stove, you have to get a match or a lighter to ignite the flame. In previous times, when the sages would get together to perform a fire sacrifice, like receive initiations or weddings, they'll have a ceremony and they'll have a fire. So when they lit the fire by chanting mantras. They chant certain mantras and the fire would ignite. If the brahmana was pure and chanted the mantras very properly, then the fire would ignite. And then they could understand, yes, this person is qualified to do this, the ceremony will be successful. His understanding of the Vedas and his chanting of the mantras is correct. And there was an assembly at one point where there was an offering, and Advaitacharya was one of the contemporaries, associates of Lord Chaitanya. So give him what's the word? Honor, benediction. So it's described that Advaitacharya was actually responsible for Lord Chaitanya's descendant. He had such intense pure devotion, and he asked Lord Chaitanya to do so. So Advaitacharya was very highly regarded amongst the Brahmana community, the priestly community. And so they had a ceremony, and then they had the offering of prasad. So they brought it to him first, because he's the most senior person. And he took that plate and he gave it to Haridas Thakur, which sounds like a simple thing, but culturally, Haridas Thakur was not honored amongst this group. These are all very purified brahmanas. They're very elevated. Haridas Thakur was born a Muslim. He had no caste or no credentials, no qualification to be a brahman, but to speak an exalted one. So they're giving their respect to Advaitacharya, and he's saying, well, when you give me, you should be giving the Haridas Thakur. He's greater than I am. And they were a little bit stunned, couldn't understand this. And he said, well, we can prove it to you. And then Haridas Thakur chanted the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that we chant, and the fire ignited. So then they could understand, oh, we don't know who this person is, but we have to accept that he has spiritual potency, because it's hard for us to do that. We have to do it just right. And then here he's doing it. So his title, you can say, the Namacharya, Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, the holy name. So this is just one example to elevate the potency of chanting the holy name. That his birth wasn't considered a factor. His material qualification wasn't considered a factor. The fact that he was absorbed in chanting the holy name gave him the same spiritual qualifications than all of these others in the assembly. So that's just a small example. Another example we can see, when I grew up, we used to go camping a lot, so these camping examples come to mind. But if you take iron, if you take a piece of, this might be tall, but if you take a piece of solid iron, an inch thick, or whatever, and you stick it in a fire, you leave it there long enough, you pull it out, the end is red hot, and if you touch it to the leaves, you'll start a fire. So you've taken something that's not fire. Iron is cold and hard, it doesn't have the properties of fire. But by associating with fire, it becomes fire. And then it has the qualities of fire. It can go start a fire because it is now, you've changed the molecular structure. I mean, it's still iron, but you've changed the qualities of that cold metal into fire simply by placing it in the fire. So this example is very helpful to understand that when we associate with spiritual energy, when we associate with Krishna through chanting his holy name is Krishna, it's none different, then we become spiritualized. Our body, just like that iron rod, becomes fire. Now, if you leave it out of the fire for too long, it'll return to cold iron and it won't start a fire. It'll just be iron. But if it stays in the fire, then it retains its properties. So, to the degree that we keep ourselves immersed in contact with Krishna's holy name and Krishna's spiritual energies, then we become, this material body, our material mind, our consciousness, we become spiritualized. And we have those qualities. So this is one of the effects of the holy name. That it purifies simply by chanting it, we become purified. Purifies the mind, purifies the intelligence. I don't know how many times in my career I've been saved because I had to do something that was beyond my ability. And simply by chanting, Krishna will give me the intelligence to say this, write this, do this, and people are satisfied. I don't know how I did that. But the mind becomes clear, we can see, we can think more clearly. It's very, very powerful. And those are just kind of mundane examples, but the potency of the holy name is there. And Krishna is so kind. There's a nice a story that I heard once from His Holiness Satchidananda Swami, Japa retreat, describing the holy name and its relationship with Krishna and its relationship in her life. That there was once a princess in a faraway land, and she was betrothed to the king to be married. But she lived along the continents, rivers, oceans. She lived in a whole different continent. And so the king sent his prince to get her, to go out and make arrangements. So the prince came to get her, and he escorted her back, and he took her over the rivers and the oceans and the mountains, a long journey to bring her back. And he cared for her very tenderly. He made sure she was protected. They had to go through forests and dangerous places. He made sure all of her needs were met. And so this was a long journey. So in the course of this journey, the princess started to develop some affection for this prince because he was taking care of her, he's protecting her. She just thought, this is a very honorable, heroic person. He's attractive, he's strong, I feel safe. And so this sentiment grew, but then side by side grew this feeling of guilt. It's like, this is not good. This is unchaste. I'm supposed to marry the king, and now I'm developing this affection for this prince. And she was not feeling very good about that. It didn't seem right. And they go on, and they finally arrive at the kingdom, and the prince puts her up in the quarters that's been arranged. Says, okay, till tomorrow you'll see the king. And she thanked him, and she was tormented, couldn't sleep. She thought, what's happened now? I'm going to see the king, and her heart has gone to this prince, and she just felt like her life was over. She didn't know what to do. So the next morning she goes in to see the king, and lo and behold, who's sitting there on the throne is the king. It's the prince. Same person. And so she was so happy because the problem was solved. Okay, I can give my heart fully because This is the person I want to give my heart to. So the point is, this is the holy name. The holy name is non-different. It's like the prince. The Krishna sends the holy name into the world for our benefit. And as we develop a relationship, it's a person. As we develop a relationship with the holy name, it's non-different from Krishna. In fact, although it's non-different, in some ways, in many ways, it's more merciful than Krishna, because the holy name comes into our heart, comes into the material world. Our heart, at least my heart, hasn't been so pure for much of it, and yet still the holy name would come in. And so then by chanting, we become purified. So the holy name will bestow even more mercy. And through that mercy, then we become qualified or eligible or purified to where we can actually see, as described in this verse, Krishna face to face. So it's very, very profound, and we take it to be a simple thing, but it's so powerful. If somebody chants just one time, it's described in the Harinam Chintamani. This verse mentioned it a few times. You chant just once, immediately you become purified. And we see people chant once, and it doesn't appear like they're purified. It's like, well, I don't see any change. But it's described in the Harinam Chintamani that the potency of the holy name is there. But depending on one's offenses, the way in which you chant, or other offenses in your life, the result of that chanting may be delayed. So you'll get the benefit, but there may be some delay until you experience the benefit if you're chanting offense with offenses, if you're not chanting offenselessly. So it's important to recite the 10 offenses every day. It's important to try to remove these things. And the other point that's made in this section here of Devahuti, these prayers, she's just a little bewildered. She's saying, she's describing Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality, and yet you took birth in my womb as my child. You've got other things to do, and this is just inconceivable. And when we examine, when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam and different scriptures, this theme comes up over and over again, that Krishna, he thrives off of, capital letters, he thrives off of. Krishna is hungry for the love of his devotees. And he'll go to great lengths. There's a lot of wonderful stories where Krishna will disguise himself, like the story with the prince. He'll appear. One Bhakta was a saint living in Vrindavan. Krishna would appear as a little boy. So why are you looking for this Krishna? You bring him some milk. He's blind, old man. You see, my mother told me to bring you this milk. But why? What are you doing in the forest? You're blind. You can't see. You shouldn't be out here alone. And old Mangala Thakur would explain. He's trying to find Krishna. This is the forest of Vrindavan. Krishna must be. Well, why do you want to find Krishna? What's the big deal? It's so dangerous. So he would extract out. This is Krishna, pretending to be a little boy, extracting out of him. What is your attraction to Krishna? Because Krishna, he likes this love. He does this with Srimati Radharani. Here is his demigoddess, and why are you so attracted? Why are you so loyal to Krishna? So the point is, Krishna, just like we all want to be loved, who in this room does not want to feel love? Right? Does not appreciate that sentiment. So Krishna, we have that because Krishna has that. This is our nature, to love and be loved. And so Krishna, he gets so much pleasure from the love of his devotees that he'll do anything. He'll take any form to satisfy them. He'll appear as their son in this case. He'll be their best friend. He'll be their lover. It's like whatever relationship you want with Krishna, this is okay. That's what I'll do. There was a nice story about a pilgrim devotee. He had an affection of the form of Ganesh with somewhere with the long trunk, the elephant trunk. And so, but he was attracted to Jagannath. His heart of hearts was really just devoted to Jagannath. But he also had this affection for the form of Ganesh. And so in his mind, the Supreme Lord was Jagannath that looked like Ganesh. Something, I'm explaining this very crudely, but basically, that's who he worshipped as the Supreme Lord. And he heard that he lived in Jagannath Port. This Jagannath was there in Jagannath Port. So he went on a pilgrimage. And back then, they don't have cars and trains and things. So pilgrimage, one part you need another, is many weeks, sometimes a many months long trip. And they basically walk. So he's going to Jagannath Port. And as he gets closer, he sees other pilgrims coming back from Jagannath Port. And he's asking them, "Oh, you saw the Lord? Please tell me what you saw. Describe." And so they would describe what they saw. And he got discouraged. He thought, well, that doesn't sound like the Lord that I want to see. He couldn't hear descriptions about his throne. So he turned around to go home. He said, "That's not my Lord. My Lord is somewhere else. They're seeing, they're worshiping somewhere else." And then at night he had a dream, and Lord Jagannath appeared and he said, "You were coming to see me, and then you turned around. Why? Well, how come you're not coming to see me?" And so the pilgrim woke up and turned back around and said, "Okay, I have to go." So he went in the temple room and he saw Jagannath. The big trunk was like this. And that was his, he was so happy. He said, "Yes, this is my Lord." So to this day, there's one day of the year in Jagannath Puri where they put this mask on and he appears in the form of Ganesh. And so the point is whatever way, whatever relationship we want to have with Krishna, he'll say, "Okay, that's fine, you can this. I will facilitate that." Because he just wants a relationship with us. Yeah. And so, and there's so many different pastimes that describe this the same dynamic that Krishna will take on the mood. But ultimately, which is fine. So, however we're attracted to Krishna, it is fine. The point is, it's Krishna. Ideally, we should try to cultivate a mood of let me worship Krishna as he wants to be worshipped, because we may get cheated otherwise. If we think Krishna is the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, and he resides in Vaikuntha, that's true, he does, and he will reciprocate, and you can go to Vaikuntha and you can interact with Vishnu. So he will honor and facilitate that desire. But as this is described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but then you'll miss out on Krishna's pastimes in Goloka. Right? As a cowherd boy where he's just, his friends are riding on his back. So it's fine, approach Krishna however you're attracted to approach him, that's fine. But if we can try to remove that, well, our preconceptions of Krishna, I don't actually understand who you are. So let me know who you are. How do you want to be loved? How do you want to be served? Then we can go deeper and enter into these less formal. But basically, Krishna is, of course, the Supreme Lord, but he's, once gave a class, it was an interesting class, but some devotees weren't so happy with the way I described it. The subject of the class was, we don't worship God, we worship Krishna. And they weren't happy because some people might think that we're not worshiping God. Yes, Krishna's God, but devotees don't worship Krishna because he's God. Devotees worship Krishna because he's Krishna, because he's lovable. Because God, it's hard to run up and embrace and love God, because you might commit offense. God means awe and reverence, generally speaking. It's very powerful. You have to be very perfect, and so there's some authority, intimidation. Krishna is just your best friend. If he trips on your foot because you stuck it out, then you might laugh and he might laugh, and nobody's going to get upset because he's your friend. And he might trip you, then you might fall down. And because that's what friends do. They're informal. They don't worry about, oh, if I do this, my friend won't like me. They're friends. They're like peers, so to speak. So for Krishna, this is very relishable because he can be himself. And if you think about, if it's ever happened to you, or if you know anybody, but if you win the lottery or come into a lot of money, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you'll have all kinds of friends. Right? Uncle George, who I haven't seen my whole life, will appear and remind me that we did such and such for my mother, or someone else, oh, you remember we went to school together? And people don't know, you'll make up a story about how tried to get to your money or whatever it is, right? And there's a whole website about the curse of the lottery where these things happen. People get money, and then all of a sudden, all kinds of people are wanting to come into the room. So if we take that to an amplified degree, the Supreme Lord, fine. If you want opulence, you want power, you want fame and fortune, you can worship Krishna, you get those things. But if you have a lot of money or a lot of power, and you're in a nice position, and then somebody comes to you and they don't care about any of that, they just want to talk to you, or they just want to be with you, then you're like, oh, I mean, I don't have a lot of any of those things, but the concept, I can appreciate that, well, this person is different. This person's kind of nice. I like having them around because they're not after all these things. So then you can really get to know the person. And so this is Krishna. We worship Krishna, not God, because Krishna is very sweet. And whether he's our best friend or whatever relationship you want to have with him, and Devahuti since the son, there's just loving exchange, giving and receiving love. And this is Bhakti Yoga. This is what the Holy Name gives us access to, is this loving relationship. And it's so intimate that it's right there in our heart. Krishna is living right here in our heart. And the Holy Name is the mechanism by which we can access it. And as Lord Chaitanya says, there's no hard and fast rules. Just chant. And so, yeah. Basically the points that I wanted to make from here. Maybe I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or comments.
Yeah, I really appreciated that last point of, somebody approaching you for friendship or to connect, not based on like what you do or what you have, but just on who you are. And something that came up for me is that often when I look at myself, I tend to put value on the things that I do and how much I can produce and things like that, and fail to really connect with just seeing the value in who I am, just a part and parcel of Krishna, like something like that. So that's something that came up for me.
Yeah, that's a nice point. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. When I think of great, devotees, exalted devotees who I'm very fond of, they've done a lot of amazing things, written books and open temple, done a lot of amazing things. But the reason I'm attached to them is because I've been in a room with them and they're just nice people. They're just who they are. And then I forget sometimes what they've done. I just think, oh, this is such a nice person because he talks to me and he laughs and he just, yeah. So it's a nice who we are as opposed to what we do or what we own. That's a nice point. Nate.
Thank you, Devaprastha. There's so many great points. But something that I just was curious is like for the Brahmanas, they could immediately recognize Haridas Thakur is very powerful because the fire lit. But what are ways that we can recognize people who have strong devotion?
Well, it's a great question.
So we can be in our P's and Q's.
Yeah, it's a great question. When we're around someone who has strong devotion, you can feel it. It's like a magnet. Like you have the little iron filings. If you ever drop your key, or some keys are probably made out of aluminum, but if you ever lose, if you're in the shop, it works sometimes in the things in the garage, you can take a magnet, you drop some screws, or you drop something. In fact, some people make a career of this. They buy these big magnets and they go to the ocean, sand, and they get all kinds of items. So if you have these iron filings and you pass the magnet, immediately they're attracted to it. So when you're around someone who's very spiritually advanced, you just It affects you. You feel it. They may say something that affects you. You may just feel, it may affect you in different ways. But it's a little subtle, so it's tricky. We have to, if we're caught up in our mind and our false ego, we could miss it and not see it. Because devotees, by nature, are very humble. They generally, not that they purposely try to conceal it, but they have no motive to show the world that they have spiritual qualities. It kind of goes against the whole concept of being a devotee, because devotee doesn't feel like they have any spiritual qualities. But we can recognize it by how they speak and things they say and how they behave and how it affects us. Sometimes it might take some time. Sometimes someone may need to point it out to us, but it's like that magnet. If you spend enough time with them, you'll be drawn. This person is inspiring you. And Super Soul is there in the heart also. Super Soul is a really wonderful guide for us, because if we're sincere and we want to make advancement, when we listen to things or read things, Super Soul's in the heart and he's trying to say, look, don't worry about that. Don't pay attention to that. But then we hear something, somebody else says something, and Super Soul say, listen, you should listen to that person. Hear what they say, pay attention. This is important. And we can feel, sometimes we meet people, right? They start talking, we're like, wait a minute, what did he say? You want to hear more because there's something there, and you don't want to miss it. Well, this is Super Soul. This guy can say, hey, yes, pay attention. This you can do it. So we have to try to tune into that, and not, if we're just caught up in our own modes of nature and our false ego and what I have to do and all these things, then we can miss those messages. But I don't know if that's too ambiguous. They hide in plain sight. And sometimes it's after the fact. Sometimes I'll realize, I'll spend some time with someone, maybe Sunday peace study. Later I'm like, that person, I should have asked. Someone tells me, we'll find out, yeah, this person is saying that's a lot of it. So sometimes it's not immediately obvious, but usually we try.
As you were talking about these symptoms, how we can find greater devotees, one memory jumped to my mind that Raj Maharaj said once. He said, if the God is this big mountain and we see it from a distance, all we can see is the mountain. But as we start walking towards it, as we start coming closer to the mountain, we actually will see that around the big mountain, there's always lots of small mountains right around it. So to say this in the same way, the person who is really close to God, he's really close to devotees. He's really appreciating devotees. He starts to see that God is surrounded by his devotees. So if you just see God, you don't see devotees, you only like being nice to God, but you mishandle devotees relationships or something like that. So you can judge the greatness of a person, how he handles his devotees.
Other people.
So once he starts noticing, it's one of the symptoms of it.
That's a great example. What comes to mind is the Jayananda, the original Jayananda in the 60s, who inaugurated Rath Yatras. If you ever saw Jayananda or talked to him, he would do one of two things. He would try to engage you in some service, probably, firstly, immediately. He was always pulling people in. He had the Hells Angels well, this big metal sign with the Hare Krishna mantra on the top, Rath Yatra. Too heavy for anyone to carry, but they knew how to weld. So he would engage them welding these things, just to engage them in service. But he was always glorifying other people. And there's so many stories, there's books written about him. But yeah, to that point, he's appreciating all the people around him, he's seeing everyone else, and he would behave and talk in such a way that his position was not so important. What's important is what this person does. Understand its caliber. So because Krishna's in everyone's heart. What's the famous story? He was taking out the trash and somebody came and said, what's going on? Oh, the temple said, I get to take out Krishna's trash. I've been wanting to do this for so long. It's wonderful. And this person thought, person taking out the trash, is this blissful? It's like, what's going on? What are the people inside like? And he's like this. You never see that in the material.
Next time, and Marge was saying that, yeah, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's different points where Lord Chaitanya talks about, who is a devotee. And he gives at least three, I can't remember, three different answers. And one is that he says that, when a devotee comes, that people see him, they naturally start chanting. They see the devotee, so start chanting. And then in this, Lord Chaitanya's case, that was the case. He would go, so people would just see him and start and get devotion for Krishna. And the second one, another answer he gave was the devotee is one who, when he chants, he or she chants, and all other people also are enthused to chant. And then another one he gave, answer he gave said that if somebody just says Krishna's name once, he said that he's a devotee. So it's like different levels that Lord Chaitanya has talked about. So for us, it's like, from our perspective, just there's different people, and irrespective of where they're at, if they chant Krishna's name once, you want to treat them nicely.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. That brings to mind as we talk about the quotes in the Holy Name. Prabhupada said this point blank that if you have a Rath Yatra or Harinam party, devotees are out there chanting, and somebody's seeing them, and he's making fun of them, laughing, ha ha ha, look at these Hare Krishna, they're so silly. Prabhupada says that person who just said that just became a devotee. They're making advancement. Why? Because they're appreciating devotees, but they're making fun of them. Yes, but they're smiling and they're feeling good, and if they said Krishna's name, then they're actually making advancement because they're coming to association. And it's really hard to understand on the material level. How can you commit offenses, right? You don't want to commit offenses against devotees. But Krishna is absolute. And there's so many pastimes. The thief that wanted to steal Krishna's jewels became purified because he was attracted to Krishna. So his motive was to steal from Krishna, but the point was he was attracted to Krishna. And so he got the benefit of both. And the famous classic case is Putana. Right? She wanted to kill Krishna. The poison on her breast is a baby, will affect your breast and will die. So what did Krishna do? He said, oh, you want to be my mother? So you know where she is now? She's in the spiritual world as one of the wet nurses, one of the mothers. Her motive was to kill him. But because she entered in that relation, came in contact with him as a mother, then she ends up being spiritually family his mother. So the point is, Krishna is absolute, just like fire, whether you know it or not, you put the finger in, you're going to get burned. If you understand the science of fire or not, Krishna, you come in contact with him. Anyway, this is another thought about the potency of the Holy Name. Even if people chant it mockingly, they're still coming in contact with Krishna. And this spiritual life is produced. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Others verily